In Detroit in the United States lies Oliver, a very handsome young man, tall, with athletic composure and a beautiful angelic look. He is the son of a very influential couple who own a pizza franchise in Detroit. The boy studied at an elite Italian high school, was a hard-working student, and was finishing his secondary education. It was during the last 2 years that Oliver met a young girl who charmed his heart, by the name of Mary, a beautiful and very charismatic young woman. Oliver fell in love immediately and wanted Mary in his life anyway, but Mary only saw Oliver as a schoolmate and a friend and nothing more. Because Mary was dating another boy from school named Elijah, they seemed to love each other very much. In front of the class, they seemed like a perfect couple, but outside the presence of their classmates, they were not getting along very well and constantly argued. Mary was very jealous of Elijah due to rumors of Elijah's infidelities. Even though Oliver loved Mary, he was content to have only her friendship and wished he couldn't force her to be his. But Oliver had already given his heart to Mary and longed for her to one day be the woman of his life. As time went by, Mary and Elijah's relationship began to deteriorate, and it didn't disguise the fights they had with each other. In a moment of fighting between the two, Oliver decided to intervene and told Elijah to his face, "Stop it and leave her alone, you coward." And Elijah doesn't shy away and retorts, "Mind your own business, get in your face." But Mary intervenes at that moment, crying, and says, "Please, Oliver, stay out of this, let me deal with Elijah." And hand in hand with Elijah, Mary walked away. Oliver was very sad to see the choice Mary had made. Even though she was mistreated and humiliated by Elijah, Mary wouldn't let go of Elijah. One day, Mary's best friend Elizabeth advised Mary and said, "Mary, you should leave Elijah and find someone who really loves you. Being mistreated and humiliated like that, you're not going anywhere." And Mary, very moved, replied to Elizabeth, "Friend, I love Elijah, it's my destiny. It's with him. He's the love of my life." But Elizabeth told Mary that this was a big mistake and that she was just emotionally unstable and not actually loving someone. That this was not love, but a completely futile desire and a foolish need to want a man who was worthless. But blind Mary believed that this was just a marital crisis and that it would soon pass and everything would be fine between them. Oliver heard about the situation through Elizabeth, who was worried about her friend's situation and wanted to help her. She decided to offer Elizabeth the shoulder to lean on. Despite seeing Oliver's noble and good intentions, Mary didn't accept Oliver's closeness, as she was faithful to her boyfriend. And she believed that this crisis would pass, but it was all in vain and foolish. Oliver, on the other hand, was enjoying happy times with his parents and siblings and celebrating the end of the year as a family. But a few months after that Christmas, Oliver was in his last year of high school. Oliver found out from Elizabeth that Mary had broken up with Elijah due to infidelity, and also that Elijah was cheating on Mary with several girls at school, which made Mary's world fall apart. Mary's family was helping their daughter in this situation, and Oliver decided to offer his shoulder again and wanted to help his love. Oliver was sorry for Mary's situation, but deep down in his heart and soul, Oliver was very happy that this toxic relationship was over. Oliver soon took the opportunity to charm Mary. Mary didn't accept Oliver's advances at first because she couldn't forget Elijah. But Oliver didn't give up on winning Mary's heart. But as time went by, Oliver's advances began to pay off and Mary seemed to respond to Oliver's affection. They decided to live it up in Detroit, going for walks together, flirting in public squares, and even their families seemed to be happy with their relationship. Elizabeth, Mary's best friend, was happy to see that her friend seemed content and happy. Elizabeth hoped that everything would work out for the couple. Exactly 2 years and 7 months into their relationship, Oliver asks Mary to marry him and Mary accepts. 6 months into their relationship, with cake, party and invitations, the big ceremony for the big day was to be held in the church. Oliver wanted their honeymoon to be in Washington. Oliver was happy to see the love of his life become his wife, just a few weeks before the big day. Oliver noticed that Mary seemed very strange and asked, "Love, is everything all right? Is something bothering you in my life?" Mary nervously replied, "It's nothing. My love, it's just emotion, and that's all." Oliver hugged Mary and comforted her. That day, Elizabeth was helping to make and dress the bride. But Elizabeth noticed that something was wrong and asked Mary, "Friend, are you all right? You look like you're going to a wake. You look like you're going to the cemetery." At which point Mary retorted, "I don't think I'm doing the right thing by marrying Oliver. I can't stop thinking about Elijah." At which point Elizabeth replied in astonishment, "Mary, it's your wedding day, and you're thinking about Elijah. Girl, grow up. This guy cheated on you with several girls at school, and you have Oliver who treats you like a real queen. He's paid for all this with effort, and you're thinking about your scumbag ex." And Mary, with tears in her eyes and very nervous, said to Elizabeth, "Elizabeth, think. We're not in charge of our hearts, and what if Elijah has changed? People can change." And Elizabeth, with a mixture of indignation and sadness, said, "Mary, guys like Elijah don't change. You could be throwing your happiness away for that bastard. Don't be a fool to go back to the past. We're on our way to the church. Oliver's waiting for you, and you're going to screw him." But Mary goes on to say that she can't stop thinking about Elijah, and that if he came through that door now, she'd run away with him. But Elizabeth tries all she can to persuade Mary to give up this madness. But it's to no avail, at which point Elijah bursts into the room and shouts, "Mary, my love, please, don't get married. I love you. Let's go back." And Elizabeth yelled at Elijah, "Get out of here, you bastard. You piece of street trash. You're not going to ruin Mary's life again. She's going to marry a real man, not some toxic waste like you." And Mary nervously said, "Please, Elizabeth, you don't have to talk to Elijah like that. Let it go. I'm going to follow my heart, and I believe that what I'm doing will be better." Elizabeth tries to stop Mary in every way, but Mary, blinded by love, ends up giving in to Elijah's words, who convinces her to run away with him, and that if she followed this marriage, she would only be unhappy with a man she didn't love, and every time she went to bed with Oliver, it would be him she would think of, and not her fiancé. At that moment, Elijah says to Mary, "Let's forget everything bad that's happened and leave it in the past. I can't stop thinking about you. I've changed, I promise." And Mary, with a smile and tears in her eyes, said, "Elijah, I love you too, and I've never stopped thinking about you." And Elizabeth said to Mary, "Come off it, Mary. The only thing you'll get out of this is a curse on your life. You'll ruin your life, Oliver's life, your family's, and in the end, maybe you'll end up alone and helpless. Think about it." But Elijah, rebutting Elizabeth, said, "Mary, my love, don't listen to her. She's jealous of our love. Let's go now and be happy." And Mary ended up making her choice in the face of Elijah's words and said to Elizabeth, "Elizabeth, I'm firm in what I want, and I wish to be happy with the love of my life. Elijah, I'm going with him." At that moment, Mary and Elijah grab hands and decide to run away, and a very astonished Elizabeth asks, "Mary, don't do that. What am I going to tell Oliver? You're making a big mistake." Nervously, Mary said, "Tell Oliver I'm sorry, but this isn't going to work. I have to go now. I'm sorry for what I'm doing, but I want to be happy. Goodbye." And Mary and Elijah run off and get into a car, and the two of them don't look back. Elizabeth is perplexed and very surprised by Mary's immature attitude, knowing that she has made a big mistake. Meanwhile, at the altar, Oliver is apprehensive about the bride's delay. All the guests were very nervous. Both the groom's family and the bride's family were very apprehensive about Mary's delay. Oliver, at that moment, thought that something bad might have happened. An accident on the way or something. Oliver was already going to call the police to find out what had happened to his fiancée. But to the groom's relief, the fiancée's car arrived and everything seemed calm. But when Oliver went to the car, an unpleasant surprise. In the car, there was only the driver and Elizabeth, who was looking very disappointed. At that moment, Oliver very nervously asked his fiancée's friend, "Elizabeth, why are you the only one in the car?" And what happened to Mary? Please tell me. And with a serious face, Elizabeth replied to Oliver, Oliver, let's talk in a more private place. But I'm warning you, you're going to have to be strong. Very strong. And Oliver decided to go with Elizabeth to the back of the church, and there Elizabeth decided to tell Oliver everything. Without hiding anything, she practically told him everything. From the bride's elopement, the attempt to prevent Mary's elopement, and the way Elijah convinced her to elope with him. Elizabeth didn't hide anything from Oliver. When Oliver heard what Elizabeth said, Oliver began to have a crisis of screaming, crying, and Oliver's nerves were on edge. Oliver left the confessional shouting to everyone. Mary ran away with her ex-boyfriend. Mary dumped me here in front of all of you. Unfortunately, there won't be a wedding. I'm sorry. Oliver had to be supported by the guests because the groom was in a state of shock. Oliver started breaking things in the church, the decorations and everything that was there. Oliver's brothers had to hold their brother back and restrain him. Elizabeth told everyone in the church what Mary and Elijah had done, and that she had done her best to stop it, but to no avail. Everyone felt sorry for Oliver, and seeing the crisis the groom was in, they watched this sad spectacle, at which point Oliver's father went to the altar and said, Friends, I'm sorry. There won't be a wedding. The bride was a scoundrel, weak and unfaithful. I'm sorry. Oliver started screaming and having severe anxiety attacks. The groom's family tried to help him, but he just wanted to be alone and didn't want to see anyone. The boy was very shaken and had a severe anxiety attack and fell into a deep depression with a profound apathy towards life. But even his parents, siblings and friends didn't abandon Oliver. At one point, Oliver tried to take his own life, believing that his life was over, but Elizabeth, seeing this, stopped him and said, Stop, Oliver. Don't do this. You're not alone. We'll help you out of this. Your family and friends love you very much. Don't do this to them. Oliver, crying, said to Elizabeth, What's the point of going on living? If the woman I love dumped me at the altar, if Mary had called off the relationship at the beginning, maybe I wouldn't be suffering so much. But that was like a knife in my heart and soul. I have no reason to go on living. Elizabeth retorted, Think of your family, Oliver. Don't do that. You have your parents, your brothers and your friends. I'm sorry about what happened. I did what I could. But Mary chose her path. She wanted it, and it's not your fault. It's not your fault. And Elizabeth hugged Oliver and promised to help him. Everyone came together to help Oliver out of this crisis, with lots of psychiatric treatment, the help of family and friends, and also Elizabeth's unconditional support. Oliver recovered, and this recovery took 4 years to be able to get out of all the psychological terror he experienced. Oliver began to see life through different eyes and decided to take this as an experience. Oliver, with Elizabeth's encouragement, ended up becoming a writer of self-help books to help grooms and brides who were abandoned at the altar. He shared his experience with everyone. In parallel, Mary and Elijah live their fairy tale. Mary believes she did the right thing. Mary and Elijah fled to Kansas, and there they lived their love. Mary believed that Elijah had changed and forgiven her for her mistreatment and infidelities, and they seemed to be very happy. But this was going to turn out to be the biggest mistake of her life. And Mary's family was also very indignant at their daughter's attitude. Since the damage that Oliver suffered at the wedding, they had to pay compensation to the groom abandoned at the altar. And they apologized to Oliver for their daughter's immature attitude. Oliver, on the other hand, ended up having feelings for Elizabeth. It was his greatest support and friend during this suffering, and Elizabeth seemed to reciprocate. Elizabeth was a beautiful blonde woman with green eyes and a beautiful penetrating gaze, quite different from Mary, who was also beautiful, fair-skinned and fair, but with black hair and eyes. Elizabeth and Oliver seemed to be in a sincere and true emotional relationship, because this pain has brought them together. Oliver's family seemed to like Elizabeth and approve of their relationship, and Elizabeth, comforting her beloved's family, said, "You can rest assured. I have a word, and I won't run away on the wedding day like Mary did. And as for her, God knows where she is." It took Oliver a while to believe in love again, and Elizabeth ended up being a real balm in his life, and as their relationship developed, Elizabeth won over Oliver and his family even more. 2 long years into their relationship and firm in their love and purpose, Oliver decides to walk Elizabeth down the aisle. Everything was being prepared. Oliver wanted to fulfill his dream of getting married in the church and spending his honeymoon in Washington. With a month of preparation, and again with cake, a party, and a lot of happiness, Oliver is at the altar again, and the bride's car arrives. But this time is Elizabeth who gets out of the car with beautiful makeup, a very beautiful dress. Elizabeth looked like a true angel of light. Oliver is thrilled and cries with joy at Elizabeth's entrance. After the 2 young people made their vows in front of the priest, they got married, and Oliver seemed to have forgotten Mary for good and didn't even think about her. It didn't take long for Elizabeth to become pregnant, which delighted Oliver. He was going to be a father, and as a joy, when he went to the doctor, he discovered that Elizabeth was expecting a pair of twins, and this delighted Oliver and his family even more. Oliver and Elizabeth's families were very happy with the couple's happiness. Oliver started working in his pizzeria empire with Elizabeth, who dedicatedly learned everything Oliver taught her and learned to manage his business, while also thinking about the future of their children. Back in Kansas, another situation was unfolding. Mary and Elijah began to quarrel and fight every day. The 2 of them no longer got on well, and Mary didn't distance herself from Elijah because she loved him. But all of this would come crashing down when, on a certain day when Mary was walking down the street, she saw Elijah leaving a hotel, hand in hand with a beautiful woman. This made Mary furious and indignant. She set off to attack the couple, and irritated Mary shouted, "Elijah, you wretch! How can you do this to me? I left everything for you, my family, my friends, and even my fiancé I left at the altar. I threw everything up in the air and you thanked me." Elijah, trying to disguise himself, said, "Baby, it's not what you think. It's not like that. I'll explain when I get home." Furious, Mary shouted, "You're nothing but a shameless bum. My mistake was leaving a wonderful man like Oliver for a heartless, unfaithful scoundrel like you. My friend Elizabeth was right. You're nothing but a piece of street trash." And Elijah nervously retorted, "Don't say that. My love, I love you." But in an act of fury and in front of her lover, Mary slaps Elijah in the face and makes a scandal, and in a great rage, she leaves the place. Elijah was lost and caught red-handed. When he got home, Mary ended up throwing Elijah's clothes out of the window of the house where they lived and shouted, "Here are your clothes, and I'm not going to pay for this house anymore. I'm going back to my house and my family, and try to at least get Oliver's forgiveness. And who knows, maybe he'll forgive me and we can go back. And as for you, I don't ever want to see you again." Mary humiliated Elijah in front of everyone there. She was furious. Mary packed her bags, left Kansas, and decided to return to Detroit. Unfortunately, Mary saw the damage that her choices made, driven by emotion, had very negative impacts. Her friends refused to help her and have her in their lives. Mary went to look for her family. At first, Mary's parents received her with joy. Mary's father unloaded a torrent of bad words at his daughter, but her mother tried to calm things down and tried to find a way to clean up her daughter's image as a runaway bride and an infidel. Mary promised that she would repair the damage and said that everything she did was out of love for Elijah. But now that she had realized that everything she had done was wrong and that she regretted it very much, Mary decided to look for Oliver and ask for his forgiveness and at least have a chance with him. That if he really loved her, he would forgive her and they would be a couple again. But Mary's mother advised her not to look for Oliver, as she wouldn't like what she saw. Mary's parents didn't decide to tell her anything and decided that their daughter should look for Oliver, because she needed to learn a lesson in order to mature. Mary's parents gave her Oliver's address and where he lived. Mary decided to look for him. And walking through the streets of Detroit, she finds Oliver's house, believing that she would get his forgiveness. Mary knocks on the door, and to her surprise, who answers is Elizabeth. Seeing her friend in that house, Mary asks, "Elizabeth, what are you doing here? I could never have imagined finding you here in this place." And Elizabeth, very surprised, said, "Mary, how long has it been?" I haven't seen you since you ran off with that scoundrel Elijah and left Oliver at the altar. I never thought I'd see you again." And Mary explained the whole situation of what had happened, that her elopement with Elijah had been a big mistake and that he had been unfaithful to her. And now she had broken up with Elijah once and for all, and was looking for Oliver to ask for his forgiveness and try to reconcile. But at that moment Elizabeth retorted, "Mary, I'm so sorry for everything that's happened. But you're too late. Oliver has suffered so much. He was oppressed, and it was your fault. He almost took his own life. It was because of me that Oliver was able to recover and believe in love again. Because you've done so much damage to his life, and I'm not going to let you ruin it again." Mary was stunned by this and still wanted to talk to Oliver, at which point Oliver appeared at the door and asked, "Elizabeth, my love, who's there at the door? Is it a friend of yours?" Elizabeth answered her husband, "No, Oliver, it's just a ghost from the past." On hearing what his wife had said, Oliver went to the door and was astonished to see Mary at the door and said, "Mary, are you here? I thought you disappeared and fled to another country. And why this unexpected return? I haven't seen you since you ruined my life and left me at the altar, waiting like a madman in love." And Mary, at that very emotional moment, replied, "Oliver, I'm sorry for everything I've caused you. I'd like to explain that it was all a big mistake and an emotional choice. Even if you don't want to come back with me, I just want your forgiveness. That's all I want. I know you have every reason to hate me and don't want me in your life." Oliver replied seriously, "Mary, I confess I've hated you a lot. Ever since that humiliation in church, thanks to Elizabeth, who was the true love of my life, who helped me out of the emotional hole you threw me into. She was a balm in my life, thanks to Elizabeth. I believed in love and family again. I forgive you. No problem. But in my life, in my heart and soul, there's no place for you. I can't go back to an emotionally weak person, without self-love and firmness of purpose. A person who is indecisive and unsure of themselves is a failure in our lives. That's very hard to say. But unfortunately, you were a weak person. Elizabeth is a strong woman, and she helped me out of the abyss you threw me into. I forgive you, but you will never be in my life again. But I do thank you for leaving me on that altar. Otherwise, I would never have met the true love of my life, Elizabeth." Mary was shocked by the harsh words Oliver said to her, but she recognized that she deserved to hear them. Elizabeth added, "Mary, I warned you that you would regret your choices, and now you're reaping what you've sown. I got involved with Oliver after I left him at the altar. I never had an affair with Oliver. He was always faithful to you, and I was a true friend. So much so that I tried to stop you running away, but you chose that." Mary realized that the only one to blame for this was herself, and that she had unwittingly put Oliver in the arms of her best friend, and that neither of them were to blame for the choices they had made. And Mary saw Oliver and Elizabeth's children, and saw what she had lost with her stupidity in going back to someone who never really loved her. At which point Mary retorted, "Elizabeth and Oliver, you both deserve to be happy, and may God bless your union. I just want your forgiveness, and that's all. I recognize that I lost, and you deserve to enjoy your happiness." Mary bid the couple a friendly farewell and left the room, at which point Elizabeth, moved by friendly affection, asked Mary, "Friend, what are you going to do with your life now? If you need help, I can help you." Mary replied, "I want you and Oliver to be able to enjoy your happiness, but I think it's best to get out of your life. For my sake, and for yours, it's for the best." Oliver replied, "Mary, I hope everything goes well for you, and that God helps you and blesses you. I just hope you've learned valuable lessons from all this. I don't hold grudges and anger against you anymore, but may everything go well for you." Elizabeth and Oliver felt sorry for Mary, but there was nothing they could do but pray for her and ask God to light her way. Mary recognized that she had lost Oliver forever, but saw that it was her fault and no one else's. Mary and her family decided to move away from Detroit and go to another city to help her daughter deal with her loss. Over time, Mary met a good man with whom she ended up starting a relationship, and she told him everything about her past, without hiding anything, and managed to win a new love. Mary had the right to rebuild her life, since she recognized her mistakes and learned from them, and her family was happy that Mary had come to her senses. As for Elijah, he ended up sinking into drink, and when everyone found out he was a bride stealer, no woman wanted anything to do with Elijah. And they all avoided Elijah and didn't want to get involved with him. Oliver and Elizabeth, on the other hand, lived happily and peacefully, with true love between them. They were happy and everything had worked out for this couple. Happiness prevailed in this family.